It's a good way to spend a Sunday of the practice period. And plus, I had a good time today studying, restudying Ben Connolly's book, which it's on the Avatamsaka Sutra, but it's on a little Korean sutra that is based on, that is the Avatamsaka Sutra in a particular form, and I'm going to talk about that. I got excited about it all over again, so please come and we'll get to do that together too. And 10 Bodhisattva grounds. This is number 3.
Week 4, number 3.
Week 4, number 3. But on Thursday, we'll do number 4 too. But don't worry, because it just confuses me, and all you have to do is show up, and don't worry about it. Okay. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
You should leave audio again.
I screwed it up.
You're fine.
I should have said no, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Prompts you to do the.
Good lesson.
Don't be tempted.
Don't listen to computers.
Exactly. Just say no. So we should end about 1:15, so we have time to do service. Okay? Okay.
You can't hear Rachel.
Oh,
Hi, everyone.
can you hear? Cool.
It might make sense just to switch to one of your computers for the microphone. And then we need your computer audio. Do you have it? Gizmo.
They're working on something.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's an audio thing. Yes. So, okay, now you can.
We could hear before, but now we can't hear. I don't know, can you guys hear me in the Zendo? No? We could hear Rachel fine through the microphone when she first started talking.
I don't think they can hear you.
They're working on it. Now?
We're fine. We can totally hear you.
You have to have great faith.
You're fine. We can hear you.
Something happens. Okay, we're good.
Okay. Okay. I'm not quite feeling up to snuff today. But I have, Sherry, my wonderful Benji is sweet enough to know that I will need tissues and I'm all set. Yeah, I'm just, feeling very fatigued. And like the darkness of the outside is seeping in a little bit today. So we'll see what happens. And this sort of feeling of wanting to withdraw. And so not surprisingly, the topic tonight of the third ground, which is the shining light ground. And as we'll come to see as I talk a little bit about some commentaries from Norman Fisher and Thich Nhat Hanh, who bring forth the virtues of patience and tolerance, inclusiveness, and of all things, vigor. So that's been an interesting invitation for me tonight. So I'll share some thoughts. I hesitate to call this a talk because that implies some cohesiveness. And then we'll chant. So, as you know from the work we've done, chanting and reading from the sutra, from this chapter, it's hard to sort of pull out for me, any particular teachings. It's sort of the experience of the chanting and the reading and the imaginative, imaginal realm that we enter that seems to be the gift. And so it was very helpful and hopeful for me to see that each of the grounds is sort of correlated with one of the perfections, and we're the paramitas, we're familiar with those, and they're a little more concrete, and how, or I shouldn't say how not, but how they, because they must somehow, since they're correlated, how they are connected to the sutra, I think will be something interesting to think about and explore. So we're studying tonight the third ground, which is the ground of shining light. And it's known as the Kshanti Paramita, which is generally translated as the perfection of patience. I looked to Norman Fisher's book, as I have in The World Could Be Otherwise, his book on the imagination, and he translates the Sanskrit Kshanti as the perfection of patience, forbearance, and tolerance. And in an interesting way, because my first association with patience is like, I'll sit here quietly and hope that eventually something will either start or stop happening. And with, tolerance and forbearance, there's a sense of burden almost and a sense of passivity. I'll just this is something I just need to be with because it's happening and there's not much I can do with it, and hopefully it will go away. But what he's talking about is what I think of as these things, these patience, tolerance, and forbearance with capital letters, the big, the big sense of them, in the broadest possible way. And so what Norman Fisher says is that practicing with the Kshanti Paramita means to train ourselves, he says, patiently, tolerantly forbear hardship and difficulty, but not passively. He says it is the effort, and I'm noticing the word effort, of turning toward difficulty and embracing it as an ally, thereby transforming difficult circumstances and misfortunes or disasters into spiritual benefit. Maybe I'll stop here for a minute to just say, I think that several of you, most of you probably heard my Way Seeking Mind talk and know some now about some of the challenges health-wise that I'm facing, and just made the connection today that this is sort of the month of anniversary of the news, which sort of unfolded like test after test, day after day over the course of a month or two, and at which point life came to a halt, and I entered a fairly dark place and initially thought, well, patience was what was needed until I probably still is. I mean, there is a part of me that is still patiently waiting for the next really bad thing to happen. And yet there's other parts of me that are happily going on with life and trying to be of spiritual benefit. But it felt just important to name that because that's a bit of my emotion, I'm sure, and part of what is maybe the sand in the pearl. Is that the expression? Like what I'm rubbing up against a little bit with this. So how is this cancer? I used to call it my cancer. Now I call it the cancer I live with, cancer that lives with me. How is that? How can I turn that into a spiritual benefit? So that's just something in the back here. I like that he also said that this perfection of patience is the most important of all Buddhist practices, because without it, all the others will eventually fail. And I think what I liked about it is like Chris often says that, Suzuki Roshi and many of his talks would say whatever he was talking about was the most important thing. I find that very common in Buddhist teachings, like whatever it is that we're studying, this is the most important thing. So, but I can see why patience and forbearance and tolerance would be, because this is not easy. It's not easy given what we're each bearing individually and then what we're collectively bearing in the world. This takes effort and energy. He goes on to say that patience, forbearance, and tolerance are easy and barely needed when things are going well, when we're surrounded by pleasantness, and much harder in the midst of suffering. And that's why we practice now. We're practicing for the unpleasant and the difficult. This was a hard one for me. He says, instead of, he quotes Shanti Deva, which is an interesting quote. If you can find a solution, what's the point of being upset? And if you can't find a solution, what's the point of being upset? Sounds sort of very Jewish to me. But that instead to recognize that the state of life you previously enjoyed has ended and you are now in a new state. This is the practice of patience. You learn to turn my suffering into our suffering. And that the end of suffering doesn't mean the end of physical pain, failure, loss, alienation, fear, or other forms of suffering, but rather the transformation of suffering into solidarity and love. That seems like a good quest to be on. I feel like it's the quest I'm on. Yeah, and how can this cancer be an ally? How can I transform it into spiritual benefit and into love? Big question. Thich Nhat Hanh, which is the other source that I've been using, this wonderful The Heart of Buddha's Teaching. It becomes even a little bit more opaque in a sense. He translates Kshanti as inclusiveness and vigor and capacity. Not what we think of as DEI inclusiveness, which, as Seinfeld would say, there's nothing wrong with that. But meaning the holding of all things, emotions, painful experiences, other people and their views, parts of ourselves, I added that, in spaciousness and openness, accepting things as they are and not trying to change them. He also equates that with freedom and equanimity. And he says that when you realize your capacity to be happy in any surroundings, then you could put down roots in the present moment. That feels like a really core piece. But vigor, like I haven't felt vigor in some time. I don't know that I'll ever feel vigor again. But what I think I get is that this is all really hard stuff. I mean, studying the sutra is kind of hard and challenging. I find it often delightful, but like if you're with your mind trying to really grasp it, it's hard. Sitting can be hard. Being patient and forbearing can be hard. Being a human is hard. To not leave anything out, to see with our eyes wide open, to turn toward difficulty, to accept what is, seeing clearly, acting with mindfulness and care, perseverance, being a benefit to others, not giving up, treating everyone and everything you meet as the path, seeing cancer as my ally. This takes energy, right? So we're in training. Thich Nhat Hanh talks, I won't say too much about it now, but explains something that to me in a way about the Buddha field, the idea that we're all Buddhas, which is very hard for me to accept. But I work on it. But he explains it as he has this sort of agricultural metaphor, you know, that it's like there's the field, there's the Buddha field, there's the Buddha ground, and it's got every possible seed. We're all living in this field. We're all living in with this same store consciousness of possibility. And we get to choose, and there's many ways of saying this, right? Who do you feed? But like we get to choose what we cultivate. And cultivate is another word that implies effort. So there's this ground and field of Buddha nature that continuously needs to be cultivated. We're constantly having to fertilize it and weed it and water it and compost it and till it so that the beneficial seeds are the ones that grow. In parentheses, I wrote, what about the growth of cancer? He's grappling, just always grappling. So these are some of the thoughts that I've been working with. Finding it, you know, so interesting as I do with most. I mean, there's this idea, it's an idea, the truth, that in every teaching in Buddhism, all the teachings are there. Everything always feels completely connected. So we have what's called the shining light ground and connected the Kshanti Paramita, which is defined as everything from patience, forbearance, tolerance, vigor, and capacity. They don't all sound the same to me, but they're all part of this. Maybe they're all the same thing. I don't know. So before we chant, I wanted to bring in somebody else who's not Buddhist, but could be. A new hero of mine, whose name is Andrea Gibson. They were a spoken word artist and poet laureate of Oregon until their death this summer at age 49 at the end of 4 years of living with ovarian cancer. They described living with cancer as a crash course in impermanence. Vigor. Andrea wrote, "In the end, I want my heart to be covered in stretch marks. I want my heart to be covered in stretch marks. So that's my aspiration. I'm hoping that I'll be able to share more of their poetry over the course of the next few weeks. There's one that spoke out to me to read to you tonight. I can't possibly read it the way they did. They were amazing. You Google her and Google them and watch them perform their words. I'll do my best. This is called How the Worst Day of My Life Became the Best. And it begins with a quote from Eckhart Tolle, which says, when you are trapped in a nightmare, your motivation to awaken will be much greater than of someone caught up in a relatively pleasant dream. And I don't think of that just for myself. I think the whole world is caught up in a bit of a nightmare now. So we have great motivation to become our best selves, to help each other as a Sangha become our best selves. So how the worst day of my life became the best. Can you hear me, Judith?
Sometimes I can't, but
Okay,
you're doing well.
okay. How the worst day of my life became the best. When I realized the storm was inevitable, I made it my medicine. Took 2 snowflakes on the tongue in the morning, 2 snowflakes on the tongue by noon. There were no side effects, only sound effects, reverb added to my lifespan, an echo that asked, what part of your life's record is skipping? What wound is on repeat? Have you done everything you can to break out of that groove? By nighttime, I was intimate with the difference between tying my laces and tuning the string section of my shoes. Made a symphony of walking away from everything that did not want my life to sing. Felt a love for myself so consistent, metronomes tried to copyright my heartbeat. Finally understood I am the conductor of my own life and will be even after I die. I, like the trees, will decide what I will become. Porch swing, church pew, an envelope that must be licked to be closed. Kinky choice, but I didn't close. I opened and opened until I could imagine that the pain was the sensation of my spirit not breaking. That my mind was a parachute that could always open in time. That I could wear my heart on my sleeve and never grow out of that shirt. That every falling leaf is a tiny kite with a string too small to see, held by the part of me in charge of making beauty out of grief. So let's chant.
Yeah,
It'll go up on screen, yeah?
yes. So if anybody wants to move over and look at the screen, we can do that too. It's gonna come up on screen, you guys.
Before we start to chant while this is getting ready, just again, setting the stage. Everyone is gathered. All the Buddhas from beginningless time, past, present, future. There are the usual pleas for explanation from Vajragarbha Bodhisattva to explain this next ground. And scattering of blossoms, Dharma requests, exchange of poetics between Vajragarbha Bodhisattva and Liberation Moon Bodhisattva, who makes the request. And then we begin. So the third ground, the shining light ground. I can do the part in bold and then we can all chant together. The 10 resolute intentions as bases for entering the third ground. Child of the Buddha, the Bodhisattva, who has already accomplished the purification of the second ground, and then wishes to enter the third ground, should bring forth 10 types of resolute intentions. What then are these 10? They are the resolute intentions set on purity, the resolute intentions set on stable abiding, the resolute intentions set on renunciation, the resolute intentions set on abandoning desire, the resolute intentions set on irreversibility, the resolute intentions set on solidity, the resolute intentions set on origin brilliance, the resolute intentions set on heroic bravery, the resolute intentions set on being broadly inclusive, and the resolute intentions set on magnanimity. The Bodhisattva employs these 10 types of resolute intentions to acquire entry into the third ground. The Bodhisattva's contemplation of all conditioned dharmas. Child of the Buddha, after the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, comes to abide on the third ground, they contemplate all conditioned dharmas in accordance with their true character. That is to say, they are characterized by impermanence, suffering, impurity, instability, certainty of ruination, inability to long endure, production and destruction in each defeating pasana, not coming forth from the past, not proceeding on to the future, and not abiding in the present. They also contemplate these dharmas as affording no protection, as devoid of any refuge, as accompanied by worry, sorrow, and anguish, as bound up with love and hate, as proliferating worry and sorrow, as involving ceaseless accumulation, as ablaze with the fire of desire, hatred, and stupidity that ablaze incessantly, as enveloped by the many sorts of calamities, as increasing day and night, and as like magical conjurations in their reality. The Bodhisattva's renunciation and quest for Buddha's knowledge. Having observed this, they doubly increase their renunciation of all conditioned things and express towards the wisdom of the Buddha. They perceive the wisdom of the Buddha as inconceivable, as unequaled, as measureless, as rarely encountered, as unalloyed insecurity, as beyond anguish, as beyond worries, as reaching all the way to the city of fearlessness, as irreversible, and as able to rescue countless beings beset with suffering and difficulty. The Bodhisattva's 10 sympathetic mental intentions toward beings. Once the Bodhisattva has in this way observed the immeasurable benefit of the Tathagata's wisdom, and has likewise observed the countless faults and calamitous qualities of life and its condition, they then bring forth 10 types of sympathetic mental intentions toward all beings. What then are these 10? They bring forth sympathetic mental intentions on affirming that beings abide in solitude with no one upon whom they can depend. They reinforce sympathetic mental intentions on observing that beings are poverty-stricken and destitute. They reinforce sympathetic mental intentions on observing that beings are involved in the flames of the three forces. They reinforce sympathetic mental intentions on observing that beings are confined in the prisons of the states of existence. They reinforce sympathetic mental intentions on observing that beings are constantly covered over and confronted by the dense forest of afflictions. They reinforce sympathetic mental intentions on observing that beings are not skilled in benevolent law. They bring forth sympathetic mental intentions on observing that beings have no desire for good dharmas. They bring forth sympathetic mental intentions on observing that beings have lost the Buddhist dharma. They bring forth sympathetic mental intentions on observing that beings flow along in the stream of cyclic births and deaths. And they bring forth sympathetic mental intentions on observing that beings have lost the means of achieving liberation. These are ultimate. The Bodhisattva's generation and practice of great vigor, having thus observed the immeasurable suffering and anguish of the realms of beings' existence, the Bodhisattva brings forth great vigor and thinks, I should rescue these beings, I should liberate them, I should establish them in purity, I should take them across, I should see that they become situated in a place of goodness, I should cause them to revive securely, I should cause them to be filled with joy, I should cause them to acquire knowledge and vision, I should cause them to be well trained, and I should cause them to reach nirvana. Having contemplated and wholly realized this, the Bodhisattva redoubles their diligent striving to cultivate right dharma to the point that day and night they only wish to hear the dharma, to rejoice in the dharma, to enlighten in the dharma, to rely on the dharma, to follow the dharma, to comprehend the dharma, to comply with the dharma, to arrive in the dharma, to abide in the dharma, and to practice the dharma.
No sound.
We can't hear you, Chris.
When you read all this, and then I thought, what's your experience of all of this? You know, in an interesting way, so I don't think I don't have anybody in my screen anymore, so. Somehow it does pull things together for me.
Huh.
Because what you're in this, and it's followed by.
You want to use this one?
Yeah.
Then you can see who you're talking to.
It is, this section that we just chanted is by descriptions of all power in this third ground, being able to read people's minds and
know all of your past lives. I mean, it's on and on, but there's something about the piece that we chanted that just seems to me that it goes from this is how the understanding of how humans suffer, and then what is we as bodhisattvas are called to do. You know, to recognize that, and then with vigor to save all beings, right? To bring the Dharma. So that's kind of how it lands for me.
What I noticed is you smiled.
Yeah.
Something changed when you said that?
I got vigorous.
Yeah.
I got energy. Yeah, yeah. It does bring me energy to do the chanting and to maybe to get out of, maybe. I mean, I feel the need because I want to bring something here that's accessible, and I want to make it accessible for me to sort of reach for Norman's book and, these other, to make these connections. And I'm wondering if that almost doesn't distance me a little bit or get me into my head and into, well, am I being this, and am I a good vigorous Buddhist, and am I like, what if I don't have vigor ever? Like, am I going to, I don't know. I don't have great plans as a Buddhist to sort of reach too many grounds, but there is, when I come back to the actual sutra, even though I keep saying that it doesn't quite make sense to me, I think it does. Yeah.
Yeah. All I'm noticing is that your affect feels different.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel more uplifted. It's feeling very down. And like I said, withdrawn, and like it was taking a lot to bring myself here today and feel like I could bring myself forth. Just kind of wanted to collapse a little bit. And maybe that's because, in all of my thinking and writing, what I was bringing was my little self. I mean, not that it's a bad little self. It's a good little self. But not the big self, which is, I think, what this sutra brings.
So then, can I ask you one more question? And I'm asking it for all of us, because then we can have people talk. Because you're a therapist, I was a therapist. Is it acknowledging this? I mean, the chanting acknowledges the suffering, and then somehow it encourages us into something that feels palpable, because I can see it in you, that doesn't feel like a spiritual bypass. I mean, I think a spiritual bypass is, oh, there's suffering, but I'm gonna just go over that suffering, or I'm just gonna, everything's fine, and then you say all these great things, and then that's gonna make you happier, or but that doesn't feel like so why? Say something.
The first thing that came to me, and I may have this completely wrong, but like, there's to study the self is to forget the self. But I don't think you can forget the self until you study the self. I think it's in order for a reason, right? I mean, I think until you have a self and a sense of who you are and what your story is, you can't let go of the story. Or there's no one there to be letting go of the story and seeing beyond it. So I think things happen in an order, and I think that's what's such a beauty of this practice, and why there's so many practices, and maybe what is that term, like, right? Upaya, skillful means that, sometimes we need to just study the precepts and really look at things on what I'd say a smaller level, right? My anger, my lack of patience, all of those things. before we could get to like the bigger patients, right? There's the small p and the big P patients. But I don't think you can just go to big P. I don't think I can go to like Rachel with a capital R until I really have looked at and wrangled with me. Yeah, that's how I want to see it.
Well, it feels to me, and then you can ask people whatever you want to do next, is that you were actively wrangling here with us. I mean, you weren't going around it, you were speaking from it, and that somehow from that, something, some invigorated state arose from the center of it.
Right.
That there's energy here that came from that.
Yeah, and yes, because on that ground, it's all okay. It's just what is. And in that ground, there's no fear, and there's no resentment, and there's no, it's just okay. I should spend more time in that ground.
But you are where you are.
Yeah, and it's not to bypass, you know, I mean, I got some tests coming up at the end of the month. Not, you know, for anybody who's lived with cancer or other HIV or other illnesses that, you know, you're sort of, there's that waiting for the shoe to drop kind of feeling. And I can get very caught in what's going to happen and what's it going to mean, and am I going to be able to do the shoe sew thing, and am I going to, and then when I get beyond that, it's just all fine. It really is, and that doesn't feel like a bypass.
And it feels tender and loving and compassion. Actually, the end part of is where it was to hear the Dharma, to rejoice in the Dharma, to delight in the Dharma. And I thought, I wonder what people are thinking. I wonder what that word Dharma means to everybody. And then I thought, to hear love, to rejoice in love, to delight in love, to rely on love. That's, I mean, love with a big, is something.
Yeah,
Something turns
yeah.
that's all inclusive. Thich Nhat Hanh's language of all inclusive. It's all inclusive.
Right. And, you know, it's not, my experience is not unique to have people with illnesses, and it's not unique. I venture to say everybody in this Sangha has suffering, some very profound. And I'll speak for myself. For me, cancer has been love practice. That's what it is.
Wow.
Has been what?
Love practice.
What's that mean?
I am open to it in a way that I haven't ever been. I feel more loved than I ever have, and more important, I feel more loving than I ever have. That's the real feeling. You know, for a long time, I grappled with my inability to feel lovable and to feel love. And at a certain point, I recognized that that was not, that the true healing was when I could feel loving. That was really the healing. So, yeah.
Thank you for letting me. So, what would you like to do next? I don't know.
Well,
what
it
time is.
seems like it's time for
Oh, it is.
service.
Oh dear, I'm sorry, I took all the time.
Yeah. I mean, if there were more time, I'd be happy to discuss with anybody on screen or in the room. I just think I'd like to just bow to you all. And thank you for your really dear and meaningful attention and deep listening for me, which is also just incredibly healing for me. Thank you.
So we're gonna do service, and let's do service the way we want to do everything, with our whole hearts and bodies, because we don't know how much time we have, what's gonna happen next. This moment is precious, and so when we bow, don't hold back. When you chant, don't hold back. And so we're gonna do what we did the last time we did service. It's the very first passages from the Avatamsaka Sutra in the very beginning that talks about that this sutra arose out of